Okay, let's start. Thanks, Trent, for coming in, and thanks everyone for coming In Conversation this evening. So just as an introduction, could you just talk about how you first got into coffee, how you started St Remio? I've got a little other question. Where did the name come from as well?
Yep.
So off you go. Thank you.
Well, I'll probably start of where I started in coffee. I've been in coffee now for 17 years, which makes me sound pretty old, actually. Not half my life, but almost half my life. I got involved with a company called Lavazza. And I was asked to come and join Lavazza by a family friend of mine who had the distribution rights to Lavazza. And I was early 20s, I'd come out of marketing, degree and got into this world of coffee that I had never really been a part of before. And anyway, I got the chance to join the Valmorbita family who had the distribution rights for Lavazza. And I started off as really in a marketing manager position, but I got the chance to do all of the positions over 10 years. But you've got to remember, 17 years ago, coffee isn't like coffee is today. Yeah. At that point in time, lattes and cappuccinos was something that we only ever had at a cafe, and it was quite fancy. And, it was a big domed cappuccino with chocolate on the top. And it was maybe, certain locations that had this coffee. And so the idea behind building the brand of Lavazza was not to talk about coffee, but was more to talk about building a brand. And so we pretty quickly worked out, because I didn't really have much coffee experience, was the idea of good evening, hello. It's all right. It's starting the story, you'll catch up pretty quickly. But the idea is that I didn't know much about coffee, and because we didn't manufacture the product ourselves, no one really knew a lot about the actual coffee. So we decided that we'd build it into a brand. And so what we did is we started sponsorships, and that was the background that I had. At university, I studied sponsorship in sport, and I wrote a book. I wrote a thesis on sponsorship in sport and the theory behind it. And so John, he had a love of horse racing. And so, we wanted to combine the love of his horse racing, and then we thought, that we could sponsor that. So we started to sponsor the Victorian Racing Club. We sponsored the Formula One Grand Prix. We sponsored the Sydney Opera House. The art centre. So what we tried to do is we tried to take coffee and turn it into a brand. Okay. And I did that for 10 years, and it was an unbelievable ride. It took me all around the world, and we had a wonderful relationship with the Lavazza family, who is based in Torino in northern Italy. And so it took me to all these beautiful restaurants, and it took me into gave me so many different experiences. After more than a decade of running that business, and we started the business, and it was a going concern, the business, but we built it up to $100 million business. Yeah. And the business then was sold, and it was 2015. So after 10 years of really blood, sweat and tears, and I'd really put myself as Trent Knox, but I was really welded to Lavazza. Yep. And so that when we sold the business, it was a really big sort of shock, because all of a sudden I'm mid-30s, I don't have a job. Julia, my wife, is pregnant with our first child, in which that's a whole other story. and so I said, what should I do? What should I do? And Julia said to me, well, why don't you go overseas? You won't get this chance again. Go overseas, clear your head, find your purpose. She was really keen on starting a business together, and she wanted to get back she wanted to stay in coffee. She wanted me to stay in coffee. So she said, go and check it out. And so I was traveling all around the world, and I went to visit my brother in Los Angeles, and then New York, and then I was over in Italy, and I went to a trade fair, and I'd had the chance to speak at symposiums before with this gentleman Michael Bloomberg from New York. And he had invited me. He said to me, I'm running a symposium in Rwanda, Kigali. Okay. I don't know where Rwanda is. Yeah. I don't know. Has anyone here been to Rwanda? No. Or into East Africa? So I said, I'm in Italy, and I rang Julia and said, hey Julia, I've got the chance to go to Rwanda to talk at this symposium. And I'd had the chance to do it here in Melbourne and Singapore and done it other places. I said, I'm up for it. I've got nothing else to do. So anyway, I got my yellow fever vaccination, and got on a few aeroplanes, and was getting onto these exotic places like Burundi, Ethiopia, Kenya to get to. And our final stop was at Rwanda, and I can remember walking through the doors, and there was actually someone waiting for me. So I thought, oh well, this is pretty good. Didn't know what to expect, and went into Kigali that night, and the next day was the symposium. And so anyway, I didn't know what to expect. So I've worn a suit and tie and dressed up. And I was one of the first speakers. And the speakers from all around the world, some really important coffee guys from Stumptown in America, and some other, really, really cool guys, from Canada. And so anyway, I got up to speak, and I was sitting in an audience like this, and there was all females in the audience. So I'm like, okay, well, this is a good start. And I said, I'd done a speech before, and leading up to it, I'd said to the organisers, hey guys, is there any specific topic that you want me to talk about? They said, oh no, tell us like what you normally do. Do your normal speech about, the Melbourne coffee culture. Because, by whatever chance over that period of time, that 10 years that I'd worked, in Lavazza, the whole coffee scene had changed, and Melbourne had become an epicentre for coffee. And this is known all around the world. And so then to go overseas and to talk about the Melbourne coffee culture, I was going to explain about the different waves that they refer to in coffee, and had a big PowerPoint presentation, had photos of me and Snoop Dogg, and I was going to tell them about George Clooney and Julia Roberts, and all this unbelievable beautiful brand of of coffee, and how we built this brand, and what it's like to sit in a coffee shop in Lygon Street in Carlton, enjoy your coffee, and so anyway, I started the conversation, and all females, and I got pretty quickly. I understood that they were more than likely farmers. So anyway, so I started a bit of audience participation. So who here's a farmer, and everyone put their hands up, and they had headphones on. There was a translator, and talking about people who'd been in coffee, and one of the women had been in coffee for 50 years. Right, everyone's clapping her, and this is a wonderful achievement, and ask her how big the farm is, and she's explaining the farm, and she says that the farm translated to 100 square metres. I'm not that good with my sort of measurements, but I thought 100 square metres is only pretty much, the sort of the size of this area here. She's been a farmer for a long time, and that's the size of her plot land. Anyway, I sort of ignored it and went on, and I might ask a question about the varietal of coffee that she grows on her farm, and didn't get much. And anyway, I said to her, could you explain to me, what is it that you farm and grow? And it came back in the headsets, white man's medicine. I laughed too. Yeah. She didn't laugh, and no one else laughed either. I thought to myself, hold on a sec here. And then sort of I was looking to the side, and the gentleman, who was running the event, and I sort of looking at them like, what's going on here? It dawned on me that these primary producers and the people that you enjoy your coffee from every day, they don't actually know what coffee is. They've been farming this coffee for many, many years. Yeah. So if they don't have the education of what the end product is, how do they know what the value is? Yeah. I mean, it'd be like being in, up in the Yarra Valley and having truffles on your plantation or on your farm, and then pulling out these truffles that have got immense value, but not knowing the end use, and therefore selling them for whatever value you've been offered for them. And so what the event was actually that Bloomberg had put on is that he wanted to introduce effectively people who are sellers to the growers and have this real relationship of relationship coffee. And so I think to myself, this had dawned to me that after all these years of which is not a negative, but after building this brand, we didn't talk about the origins. Didn't talk about the farmers. I thought, I'm here in this symposium, come all the way from from Melbourne, and I'm in Kigali, Rwanda, sitting with these women. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've travelled all around the world, Michelin star restaurants, chefs, parties, events, and I've been to other plantations as well, but nothing like this. So it dawned on me that I remember ringing Julie and said, hey, look, we're missing something here. Like if you think about wine, we talk about the producer, we talk about the origin, and we talk about the winemaker and how proud we are of this winemaker. Or if we talk about a farmer, and we might talk about beef, or we talk about, which is great. We celebrate the provenance and we celebrate the person, the grower. In coffee, I mean, if I ask the audience here, does anyone know where coffee comes from? More than likely, most people don't know, A, where coffee is grown, and and B, like, you know, what's the process of how to cultivate it.
Yeah.
So I remember I'm in the fields. The next day, the women had invited us, and so we took a bus ride, and the bus ride was a 3-hour sort of, you know, bus ride to go to the eastern province of Rwanda in a place called TUK. This is the cooperative. And so the way that it works is this lady did have 100 square, but effectively it was a bigger farm.
Yep.
But then she owned her part.
Okay.
And then the person you know, next to her owned her part, and so on and so forth. So it went a while. So it was quite a vast space. But what happened was that there was no commonality, or there was no sharing of how to cultivate, how to plant, how to prune, how to do all the, you know, how to get a thriving business. So they're all doing their own thing. And so what the plan was then, you know, they were explaining to me, is that the part of this education is that they wanted to get the group together and then work to better their lives and understand the value of their coffee, improve their coffee, which would then improve the livelihood of themselves and also their family.
Yeah.
So I remember ringing Julie at the time, and I was in the fields, and I've got a photo of it. I did take a selfie at the time, but there was a lady, and she had a baby on her back, a brand new baby, and she'd been working like 6-7 hours into the day, and she'd been working all day. The baby's on her back, and the baby's happy, and they're all singing. All the women who farm together, they all sing during the day. So there's all these beautiful songs.
Sounds
it's
good.
melodic, you know. It's going to this, and so I'm on there. And there's a baby there, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, my wife, and she's having a baby, and the women are saying, "We'd love your help." So I don't have a job. I mean, what help can I do? So I ring Julia, and I said to Julia, and by the way, in Rwanda, their Wi-Fi and their service is actually better than what we actually have here in Melbourne.
That doesn't surprise me.
So it's unbelievable. So I'm on the phone to Julia, and I said, Julia, I'm thinking I'm here, and I'm in Rwanda. I've met these wonderful women. We're here in the plantations, and it's a real eye opener. I think that we should, you know, we've got to do something. We've got to help these people.
Yeah. So it came to you just out of the blue, because you were doing something else, and then you were almost travelled to this place. And I believe, a bit like you were meant to see something.
Yeah.
And
so St Remio is born, and St Remio is an acronym.
Okay. Right.
Sustainability.
Yep.
Transparency. Rwanda. Empowerment. Melbourne. Impact. Origin.
Yeah, okay, good. That's a great name.
So St Remio really doesn't mean, I mean, it means a lot, and it means a lot to Julia and I, and now it means a lot to a lot of other people too.
Did anyone know that about the name? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so this is the DNA. I mean, the DNA of each one of those components of St Remio is standing for something that holds a real value to how the business started, and that's why we call it, you know, St Remio, born in Rwanda, raised in Melbourne, you know, established in 2015.
Yeah. Can I ask why it was only women farming?
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
So the history of Rwanda is around one of genocide. And there was a lot of men more than 25 years ago, and there was a war between effectively, it was a war in Rwanda. And one of the religions effectively wiped out, genocided the other. And so a lot of the women were then left to bring up the families, bring in the income, and really step up. And so Rwanda, you know, when I was there, the immense pride in sort of female empowerment, the number of women that are in the parliament, and it's quite a very progressive country in the regards to females and their role in the communities. We know that in Africa that, you know, more than 80% of the coffee farmers are actually female.
Okay.
But it's often the male who profits because they're doing the trading.
Okay.
So the women are doing the work and the men are often trading.
Yeah.
So what we really wanted to do is the first part of the St Remio business is changing the conversation. So not talking about the commodity, not necessarily talking about the brand, but changing it to the community and the growers and the people that I met on that first trip, and explaining to them that they're the real heroes.
Yeah.
And that these are the people who are, you know, that thank you to our morning coffee is because of the people that you'll never meet.
Yep.
You know, you won't meet Anna Marie, but she's the person who is bringing you your daily coffee. And so we wanted to shine the light on that and change the conversation around that. And also that in those countries, specifically in Africa, is that we know that statistically that for every dollar that the male makes, around 55 cents goes back into the household.
Okay.
As compared to the female, where 90 cents goes. So they often say when you're there that if you empower the female, you're empowering the next generation of children.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, and so it's a really important thing, and you know that's not necessarily the same in all countries either.
No.
You know, that's something that's very specific also to Rwanda, but in Africa.
Yeah.
And so it was amazing to see that I didn't know this myself, because the places I'd been previously, that there was men who were working, or and the plantations. You've probably seen some of the photos that are here at the Greenery, but if you see some of the photos of what a plantation looks like in Brazil, they're 100-year-old farms, and it looks like you're going to the Yarra Valley or Champagne region, where there's these beautiful tree-lined hills, and they just go for as far as the eye can see. There's mechanical that actually shake the trees to pick the cherries. There's not hand picking like in Rwanda. So it's a really it's a big it was something that I hadn't seen before. And it was something that really changed our lives.
One thing I read on your notes and website was, which I found funny as well, like you were saying, the farmers never had tasted coffee or never drank coffee. I had no idea what it was. Called it something that we would never call it. So, and then I Googled what's a cupping lab. And so you've built a structure, or if you could talk about that.
Okay. So in this specific province, so then what we decided is that what we wanted to do is, in addition to changing the conversation from commodity to community, what we wanted to then do is we want to go and help the communities. And so what we did is that we started off back in TUK, where I first went that first visit. And we rather than say imposing on the women about what would look good for us or what we wanted to provide for them, we asked them and the community leaders, what would help enrich your life? And so the first year we didn't have a lot of money, and still don't. But the first year we asked them what they wanted, and the first year we provided things like beds, mattresses, so that they could sleep on a mattress. We provided things like solar lamps, so that in the evening they could still, read, communicate as a family. We've provided electric cookers, because what they were doing is inside their homes that they were actually having open fires. Now you could imagine in a small environment with low roof to have an open flame where you're cooking your food. I mean, this is not a nice environment. So this is where we started. And then the next thing was, we said, as we got more, we said, okay, what could we do to help a wider group of people? And one of the things that they suggested was to do, we call it a cupping lab. But what it actually is, a cupping lab is like a cellar door at a vineyard. Where you could go and you could showcase your product from your, from your plantation. And so that's how it started. So that the idea is that you could go back to those women that you talked about, that we met at the beginning, and then they could actually show you. We would make it a tourist destination as well. It was for them as well, that they could then grow their cherries, pick the cherries, process them in their station, take them into an environment where they could then roast the coffee, they could then grind the coffee down, they could then go through a process which is what we call cupping, which is tasting the coffees. And so that then what they could get an understanding of is they could understand of the taste and the quality. Once they understood the quality, they could understand then the value. So then they understood the value of what sort of coffee, and they could also, as part of it, so that's what a cupping lab is. From there, we then moved to a totally separate region, which is right at the southern western point, which is right near the border of Congo and Burundi area. And the cooperative is called Kokaji. And Kokaji is many of the photos that you see here. And what they wanted was, the women, when we went to this plantation, we went to the area which was sort of designated to be the women's section of the coffee plantation. And it was on a hill which was at more than 45 degrees, so much so that Julia and I had to hold each other's hands and were holding on to branches so that we didn't fall down effectively which was a cliff.
Wow.
And that was their area. And they said, and then they had to walk back up this hill with the coffee on the head up to a road, which was very inconvenient for that. So they said, we would love to have our own plot of land.
Yep.
So then what we did is we worked with a company, an international company called Rainforest Alliance. So I don't know if you ever go to the supermarket and you see on a coffee pack, or you see on a tea pack, or you see on a chocolate pack, and there's a little frog, a green frog on the pack.
Yep.
It's Rainforest Alliance. They're an organisation which provides education, on ground and in field education and support to make sure that sort of from a grower's point of view, that almost nature's in harmony with the environment.
Yep.
And so that what they then do is that we funded it. And we purchased on their behalf. We bought the land. The women told us which plot of land and where to buy the land and what they would like and what would be suitable for them. And so over that 3 years, which is now 3 years ago, we have now purchased on their behalf. They own it and run it and make all the money from it. But we've got 8 hectares of land. 30,000 coffee trees, and there's now a group of in excess of 1,300 women and their families which own that cooperative.
Okay. Yep.
And now they cultivate the trees.
Yep.
And it is on somewhere which is very close to the way the land has been stepped out, that they've been able to design it accordingly.
Yep.
We also funded a greenhouse and seedlings, and so that they could then, grow also other avocados, bananas in the off season to be able to subsidise the revenue whilst the coffee trees were growing. So it's a story which I would not have thought about.
Yep. Yeah.
And when you probably tell the story like this, it's a wonderful opportunity to reflect, because we are living it.
Yep.
And there's other complexities that come with running. We're really trying to run a business.
Yep.
This is, but really the impact that, it's just a small decision of which coffee you choose, the impact that you can have on so many other people's lives.
And I think the thing about in Melbourne, like you were saying, the coffee culture wasn't around 17 years ago that it is now. And it definitely wasn't what's the origin of something that has just come in the last perhaps 10 years. People are really aware of things, and I guess that's environmental issues and just social justice issues as well. People want to know where their things come from.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Provenance is really important.
Yeah.
And and often we celebrate the barista, or maybe we celebrate the brand. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's that's part of life.
Yeah.
But I agree that there is a big movement that is now wanting to celebrate the provenance and the story behind it.
Yeah.
They want to know that this is not a faceless multinational brand.
Yes. Yeah.
That there are people behind it, and there are people behind the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact is that great quality coffee that we enjoy here at the Greenery doesn't necessarily just start with the barista, or it doesn't start with the coffee roaster. It starts with the person who grows the coffee.
Yeah.
And if they don't grow great coffee, then you don't have great coffee.
Yep.
So, it's and that's what we've been really trying to change. Like even in Melbourne, so often we talk about the barista. We celebrate the business, or we celebrate the brand. But, we're really hoping that, what we're trying to do is change that conversation, and really highlight the growers.
Trent, when I walk in here now and look at the coffee being made, I'm going to think of a woman with a baby on her back. How good is that?
I know.
That's fantastic.
And the impact that you can have, that's the thing that we've really, I harp on about that. But the idea is that, just by the choices that you make can really make a big difference to so many other people.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. You talk so beautifully. I've completely forgotten all the questions that I'm going to ask you.
And you've gone the questions?
Absolutely. We actually answered a question that was next about Rwanda and how far away it is. And you've already gone into that, so that's fine. We can all see Trent's energy and enthusiasm. So one day I was standing here and was conducting a staff training afternoon, and we could all hear your voice across the room, and it was just really, I would say, empowering our staff to be confident enough to have a go at making a coffee. And does your energy, when do you wind down? Does your energy continue 24 hours a day, or?
Look, I think that.
And also, how do you re-energise yourself?
Yeah, they're very good questions. There's a few in there. I'll start with the energy, and I think that enthusiasm breeds energy, and enthusiasm work hand in hand. We are in the business of hospitality. We are in the business that we also provide a product that is not just a product that is a can that you open and consume or a pack that you just take. It's a semi-finished product. We need people to be able to make a beautiful coffee. And so training and education is something I'm so passionate about, because if I come anywhere around the world and you have a St Remio coffee, you want to have that consistency, or you want to do it justice for what we set out the coffee to be. And so, you know, I also love that people that, you know, first we had one of the team members here, doesn't drink coffee, drinks tea, and, you know, he wasn't that confident. But when you realise that you just break it down and we really try to make it systematic, you get great joy out of seeing someone make their coffee and actually feel that, you know what, I can get behind this machine and I can work with this coffee. And now I understand that there is a lot of artisanal aspect to coffee and coffee making, but we can make it a process and we can make it fun and enjoyable. And the energy that I get from seeing Campbell and Tara and all of the team here making their coffees and feeling proud about the coffees that they've made, you know, that also creates energy for me. On answering your question about winding down, look, probably not now is not the time for winding down. You know, we've really, you know, we're pushing really the business. We're in a really, you know, we're in a positive growth phase of the business. You know, where we're continuing to grow. We've got really grand ambitions for where we want to take this business, and so I would say at the moment that probably there is not a lot of downtime. But I have, over the last 12 months specifically, probably post-COVID, and also other things that were going on. We've had a number of some amazing highs and also a lot of lows in the business. I think it's sort of made me refocus on what my purpose is. And so I've started to get into, you know, really understanding of what I want to get out of, you know, what my purpose is, and also introduced into things like meditation. You know, now I'm meditating morning and night. You know, and so those kind of things really help me in probably winding down, or just, you know, being focused on and enjoying being present.
I don't meditate enough, but when I do, I often find I'm not focusing on anything, I'm not thinking about anything, and I often find a problem that I've forgotten about comes up, and suddenly my mind just gives me the solution. It just goes like this for me. So is that sort of what you use meditation for, or is it to solve problems, or is it to just calm?
It started off as just to try to become present, because, you know, the energy creates is probably fueled by maybe anxiety. And so the idea of worrying about the future, and we're probably getting a bit deep here, but the idea of having that, you know, you know, being quite anxious creates that high energy. And so the idea of the meditation was able to, you know, and that the anxiety comes from worrying about future events that may or may never occur. So by having that meditation, just being present in the now, has really helped me be a lot clearer in my decision making, being, you know, less reactive and more focused.
Great answers. Beautiful. I love it. It's a lot to take away and think about.
Not rehearsed.
Not at all. 100% not rehearsed.
I don't know where it'll go.
One of the things, these talks are all about passion and passion. We can see your passion with, and one of the, I'm going to mention something personal, because on your website you talked about going to Rwanda with your wife. And you walked down the hill, and I'm not sure, and the people were there to greet you, and that nearly made me cry. I know that feeling of greeting. I know that feeling of someone opening their hearts to you. But the thing I really loved hearing, because I do this with my husband, you're holding hands. You hold hands with your wife. You mentioned holding hands with your wife before, so you didn't fall down a mountain. And that leads me into passions, right? Because obviously you're in love with your wife and you show that. But do you have any passion that's not to do with your company?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, definitely. It does consume a lot. I think that the highest, Julia and I are business partners. Okay, so that's one part. And there's a lot of complexities. We're here today at a family business, multi-generational family business. We're just in the starting, it's just Julia and I, it's the first generation of our business. But first and foremost, we're husband and wife, and the highest value that I hold is family. I often, the boys joke about it, but I have a saying which is family first. and that is the most important thing in our lives. You know, there's nothing more important. I was very lucky. I've got Mum here tonight. There's our biggest supporter. You know, I've got in the front row, just in case no one else turned up. I think she felt bad in case no one came. But no, the idea of, you know, I love my family, and so that is the highest priority. And so if we're not at work, but we often, you know, if you'll see Hunter coming here on a Saturday morning creating chaos, or Winter, you know, running around, but so that our passion is certainly relies around my family and the importance I put on that. And my other passion is that I love AFL football.
Oh, really?
I love it.
Good,
and I have a team which is North Melbourne, which is not so good at the moment, but as I said to Mum today, we go through cycles, and that I've got a baby that's 16 months old and a 6-year-old boy, and I know by the time that they're in their teenagers, I'm sure that we'll have turned that around and they'll have positive experience.
They'll be in a grand final.
I hope so.
Football's such a great. There's so many people here who don't like football.
Yes.
Tara loves football, and Tara's actually made me rediscover a love of football. My mother loved football. She was Western Bulldogs, all her life, and that family connection is really important, I think.
Well, footy's a bit like what we were talking about before. I'm not sure if I love football at the moment.
No.
But I love the community aspect, and I love the fact that I go with my dad. My cousins sit 3 rows behind me.
Yeah.
My eldest brother is 12 years older than me, brings his children.
Yeah.
You know, his oldest boys come to the football every week. I've got a mate from primary school who we still go to the football with every week. So it's as much as the community aspect of catching up with our family and friends and reminiscing about, you know, going to the football with my grandfather, you know, as a 5-year-old boy, and now to see that, you know, my nephews or my son is now going to the football with my father, you know, like it's just about as much as community and being together as much as your team winning or losing, you know.
I also think football is actually a really good game, and growing up having to go to the football with my family, and I would sit there and read, but I still took it all in. And I still today, now I watch the game on TV, and I just instinctually know when it's a push in the back. And I scream it out, and I think, how do I know that? Oh yeah, it's just inbuilt in you. It's a great game. It's a really, really good game.
I played a lot as a boy, you know, and that's I played all the way from, you know, a 5-year-old boy up till I was 21 and I had an injury. But I played at some high level football, but I was, you know, but I just really loved it. But I loved playing the game, but I loved really training, and I loved that element of the relationships and building rapport. And you know, we came from a lovely family, and we realised that, you know, that comes from, you know, and that's what I love about being here too. That it doesn't matter whether you're, you know, whether you're Karen or whether you're the person who is the cleaner, that at a football club, everyone is sitting on the same level.
Absolutely.
And the respect level is that, you know, if it's the bloke who cleans the boots or it's the coach, you still have to, you know, you have that same respect for people. And I think that, you know, instills a lot of great values in people growing up. So, football is one thing, but probably what's behind it is, you know, in reflection is something that is endeared me to the game more.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Go doggies. Okay, let's have a look. Oh, I was going to ask you this before we came over, and it may not be relevant. Have you ever had a mentor, or have you ever been a mentor to anyone else? And we can go to the next question if you're there.
No.
Yeah, okay,
instead of mentor, I'll use role model.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
I use role model probably. Yep. Look, I grew up with, you know, I harp onto it, I know, I'm sorry, but I grew up just around the corner from here, and I grew up with a lovely family, mum and dad, 2 brothers, 2 older brothers, and I grew up and I had 3 grandparents. And I've still got one alive today, Nan. Betty, lucky. She lives opposite Doncaster Shopping Town. I saw her, you know, just during the week. And so I came from a very loving family who were great role models for me around family, community, empathy, you know, working really hard. You know, they worked really hard and they made a lot of sacrifices for me, you know, when we, you know, and for my brothers when we were growing up, to put us into school and, you know, and to give us any opportunity that we wanted. So I would say that I mean, inherently they're the role models or the mentors that I had, you know, that really shaped my values and work ethic, enthusiasm, passion, you know, or, you know, no doubt stemmed from the family. From a business perspective, Yeah, I've also had a number of mentors in different areas, but probably one that I do admire is Julia, which is my wife, because, and at the start, it probably was a negative. To be fair, it was probably a negative that we worked together. Is that she has a very clear vision and thinks extremely long term.
Okay.
And she doesn't worry about the when or the how things are going to happen. She just inherently believes in the end destination. It's like she's read the book. You're talking about reading books before. It's like she already knows the ending. And so therefore she's got so much comfort in the fact that things go, you know, we've had, as I said to you before, we've had the highest highs and we've had, you know, really low lows where we thought we were going to lose everything. You know, and so in that period of time, but she never has wavered. You know, and I'm the opposite. You know, I'm the anxious guy, and I'm the guy on the numbers, and I'm saying, look, you can't spend this, and do we have this money, and how do we afford to support these communities when we can't afford the... And she's totally relaxed, you know, and so I really admire that, and it's something that I've really worked hard in the last 12 months as part of that meditation, of just around the purpose of just really enjoying the journey. It's a cliche, but enjoying now and enjoying what we're going through, because there'll be a time when we look back and be like, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could go back to that when there was a handful of people and we used to get onto the machines and I got to train people, you know, because, you know, I know what it was like at Lavazza. I didn't get to train people because there was 100 staff. We built a team and, you know, you got to roll in and roll out. But like now it's getting back to the grassroots where we get the opportunity to see people making their first espresso, hitting the espresso equation and feeling so proud about themselves, or pouring their first love heart into a cup and feeling great, or you know, or you know, so that's the aspect that that I'm learning to really love and enjoy.
I'm an incredible believer. I love reading history, and I think not enough people can see that long vision. I love a 500-year vision, and that's more to do with politics and, you know, things like that. But that's a real talent, I think, for your wife to have that forward thought. It's not even really talking about a goal. It's almost like having that up there and everything else is just swept away and you'll move forward. Like, that's a real talent.
I agree. And if you're someone who is like wanting to control outcome, or you're wanting to, you know, it can be really difficult. And so at times we really clash, because I'm like, you know, like, stop just believing. Like, you know, it's not just going to happen. You know, like...
How do we get there?
Yeah, we've got to get there. You know, we've got to have a plan to get there. And so there is a balance. So I'm not saying that she just dreams without having the plan and thoroughly going through it. But you know, that's
you pay a lot of money for someone like that.
Yeah, and it's a good balancing act.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Good on you. Okay. You might... Okay, this question is, what were you like in high school? So I want to know what your teachers said, and I want to know what your reports said, and I also want to know, can you see yourself in high school, and are you still the same person? Or could you see what you might be like as an older person?
Should I pass the microphone to Mum?
Yeah. What was his reports like?
I think I started off with going to, you know, school around the corner from here, but Mum and Dad made a lot of sacrifice, and I had the chance to go to Wesley College in St Kilda Road. And so I suppose that, and I was a very keen sports person, as I said. And I had the chance, you know, I was a high achiever. I remember playing in the first A team when I was in year 9, and that was a real big deal. And, you know, and I was really enthusiastic then, and I was very focused and passionate about, you know, about football. But I was cognizantly aware of the sacrifice that Mum and Dad had done to put us into the school. So I suppose that might be where the anxiety come from, of making sure that I, you know, do a good job. You know, and you know, I got a decent score at school, and got into Swinburne University. You know, and did an honours and wrote the thesis. And so I, you know, I was diligent in the class. But you know, as I said, if you look back at people saying, oh, we did the 25th reunion at school, and people say, "Oh, you still play football?" So, well, I'm a middle-aged man now with 2 kids. You know, that's not. It's a different person, but you know, certainly at school, that's probably what I would be known for.
Yeah. So, say you went to a reunion and you told your ex-colleagues and what you do now, would they be surprised?
Yes,
or
definitely.
would they think, no, he was always going to do something like that?
Well, they did make a joke. I had a school teacher who did make a joke about what he thought I would be doing when I was older, and it was a tongue-in-cheek joke. But you know, I don't think anyone, even myself, I couldn't look forward and say, you know, that I would have been to Rwanda and that I would be working in coffee and the family, you know, which is I don't know, serendipitous, but the school I went to at Wesley, the family members of who I ended up working for were in my class.
Okay, yeah.
And so I had a really good rapport with those kids.
Yeah.
And so I ended up working. So fast forward 25 years and I worked with the family that I went to school with.
Yeah.
And they gave me a great opportunity to get into this game.
When I asked that question to staff, it's an incredible, very clear thing. They're either sports or they're either, they might be a geek, or they might be... it's a very clear divide. Often there's sports here.
Yes.
And perhaps schools do sports really well, and
well, it just provides, like we were talking about before, it's about community. I mean, sports provide that opportunity, and that doesn't mean sports could also be music, and it could be, you know, musical theatre. You know, it's being part of a club, part of a community. It could be playing chess. You know, it's not necessarily I don't think it's necessarily just the sport. It's more a fact of being belonging. You know, and being belonging to something and having your crew. But it was true that when we did go back 25 years later, there was still crews of people who played together, or mates were together 25 years who still stood together, you know, and probably didn't interact with everyone else there.
Very good, lovely. Being a passionate person, are there any? I think you've already said something similar to what I'm looking for. You've said like a mantra, a saying. You've said family first.
Yes.
Are there any other sayings or areas of information or knowledge that every now and again you'll be working and you'll think, oh, that's come up again, and that's how I saw. So, for example, if I'm and this is not business, if I'm travelling with a mate and we're in, I don't know, Budapest, and I miss out on seeing that church because we've got to get on the train, we have a saying, always leave something for next time. Which is actual bullshit. We're not going to do it.
You're not going back there.
But it comforts us. It comforts us because, we won't go back. But it comforts. Is there any saying where every now and again it comes up?
Well, we actually have a neon sign that Julia bought for me, and it sits at the top of our stairwell. So when you walk up to the offices, and you're all welcome, upstairs, and it says, dream, believe, create, succeed.
Okay.
And you know what? It might have come from like an Uncle Toby's Iron Man commercial in 1992 or something so random like that. But there was a saying that we caught on to, which is dream, believe, create, succeed. You know, and there's a big, there's a neon sign in our office which says that. And so I would say that if there's it's staring me in the face, so maybe that's something that's topical that comes to mind. But
do you reckon, say you've got a hard day, it's a really hard day, like you said, you had low times, and does that just come into your head? Do you just go like that and go, and does it comfort you?
No doubt. I had a mate of mine who was a former Hawthorn football player, Campbell Brown. He's a character. But one thing he used to say to me, and when I went in on the premierships, he just said, believe. And so and so that was the idea of just at any stage, just believe. You know, like that's one of the things that comes from that dream. Is the idea of actually just believing that you can do it, and just willing yourself, knowing that whatever happens, and this other gentleman, Johnny Valmore, but he gave me some great opportunities, and he used to have a saying, which is, if it's bad, it's good, and if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's good. If it's good, it's good. Well, because the idea of it's, mate, either way, it's all good.
Yeah.
We'll make
Either
it
way,
work.
either way.
We'll make it work.
You're going to learn.
You're going to learn, and we're going to make mistakes. And as long as the mistakes aren't, doesn't wipe us out, then we'll learn from them, and we make sure that we don't do them again.
Yep.
But they're probably a few slogans that that motivates me, or I think about.
Good. Just to finish, I feel like you've met some amazing people in your work and career, and in Rwanda, probably. Is there anyone that stands out? Is there a story that you can tell us, even like, about the woman with the baby, or, is there one person that you'd like to tell us about that you've met that's had a real big effect on you?
Wow, that's a big last question.
Yeah.
Look, I did talk about Julia, so that was a good one.
Yep.
That was a great one.
Yep.
No doubt about Julia. But I have had some unbelievable experiences. I had the chance to go to Paris and have a private dinner with 100 other people in the Chateau de Versailles. And it was cooked by, the chef was, the meal was cooked by a gentleman called Ferran Adrià, who is a chef which had a restaurant called Il Boulay, he was the person who changed food into that molecular gastronomy.
Okay.
He was the first to make a liquid a solid and a solid a liquid. And I had the chance to have dinner with him and his wife, and I was in that dinner with Giuseppe Lavazza, who is the fourth generation owner of the Lavazza coffee. And we sat at the dinner. I didn't speak Catalan.
Okay.
Catalan.
Yeah.
Which Ferran spoke. Giuseppe spoke Italian. I speak English. And we had this unbelievable conversation and dinner at this unbelievable environment. And we had a love of course, of coffee. Yeah. But it was just one of those most surreal experiences that you look back and think, geez, that was very special.
100%. Was the food good?
Oh, I mean, well, at that time is that, like, I'm a 26-year-old guy growing up in Templestowe where, La Porchetta had been my Friday night, special.
Yeah.
And now I'm all of a sudden I'm sitting I'm in Paris, Chateau de Versailles, eating three Michelin star #1 restaurant in the world, and I'm sitting there eating the dinner cooked by him of this crazy food with spherification and. I mean, it's a long way from Templestowe, that's for sure.
Yeah. I love it. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Trent. I just want to say one last thing about what you've said. One of the words you used, which I think is highly undervalued nowadays, is empathy. For you to be a businessman and use that word in your conversation is really important, I think, and it actually shows. I've spoken to your mum, and I've only met you tonight. I can see what a compassionate, empathetic person you are. Away from your business, I think you're a really nice person. I'm really, really happy to be sat here and spoken to you this evening. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Really lovely.
Short black, long black, vanilla.
But my coffee or?
Extra strong, whatever.
Oh yeah. What's your coffee order?
What is your choice?
My favourite coffee is I just love espresso. I love espresso coffee. Yeah, I really do.
Just a little one.
Yeah,
a little coffee.
No, just a single espresso. And just I love drinking my coffee in a ceramic glass, and I love to have that. That's a great way to start the day.
Beautiful.
How many coffees do you have a day, Trent?
Yes. That is a very interesting question. Well, they're like the girls say in the office, no less than 2 and no more than 22. And if it's somewhere in between there, then it's been a pretty good day. Wow. And I know if I go over that, then it's, it creates some issues. Yeah. And if I go under that, I'm probably pretty cranky.
Any other questions?
Surely you wouldn't go under to pretty much anything.
No way.
No, I don't think. No. Maybe I've been on an aeroplane before and I've had a long trip and maybe I haven't had any.
Yeah,
but, but other than that, I don't think there's many days ago.
Yeah,
It's dangerous for us having the coffee machine here now because I think everyone, you know, I'm sort of having. I was really at one a day before here, then I'm 2, 3, 4
Rolls.
And I've actually told the baristas now, if I come up after sort of 1 o'clock, put me on decaf.
Yeah. Well, that's actually.
The decaf is beautiful. It's really, really
Okay.
nice, and I think it's. I borderline think it's almost as good, if not better, than the regular coffee.
Thank
I
you.
just think it's really, really.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's the idea. I mean, that people often, you know, talk about decaf as, oh, you know, death before decaf and all this sort of stuff.
Is that a dirty word?
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's like, you know, I mean, we're just having an open discussion now, but like the idea of decaffeinated is it goes through the same process in terms of where it's cultivated and how it's grown. It's just that it gets processed where the caffeine is taken out of it. And there's multiple methods of how the caffeine is taken out of the coffee. But in real terms, I mean, you know, we have in the office, we're experimenting with coffees every day, but I could have a day where I just make decaffeinated for the whole team, and not one person in the team picks it up that it's decaffeinated.
Yeah, okay,
you know, because really, you know, we're getting sophisticated. There's no reason why decaf shouldn't extract the same way as a non-decaffeinated coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask the guys to substitute me for a decaf every day.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
after 1.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got another I was talking to your mum about places in Melbourne and just going for urban walks, and
Yes.
what places do you like in Melbourne? Like it could be a building, restaurant. What do you like?
Can I just take my spare time? You go. Yeah, I didn't probably answer that question because there's a lot, and I know
Yeah.
you know I love to
Yeah,
talk.
yeah.
Wind me up. But I love going to the venues that serve our coffee.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
I love going to King and Godfrey,
Yep.
which is in Faraday Street, Lygon, in the corner of Faraday and Lygon Street,
Yep.
which is a historical delicatessen,
Yep.
which they've done up, and that
Yeah.
is just that is a beautiful venue. I love that. But I also love a recently opened restaurant called Grill Americano, which is in the city, and it's by Chris Lucas, and he's a great supporter of Julia and I and St Remio, and I've fallen in love with that as my new favourite Italian restaurant in Melbourne.
Okay. Oh, good.
Yep.
Oh, thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah, there's a few.
I don't drink a lot of coffee, but my husband loves it. But sometimes we'll pop into Brunetti's,
Oh yes,
and I just love it because it reminds me of being in Italy.
yeah, and
The way you pay, the way you drink it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And in actual fact, I'm working on a project at the moment where we are looking in the CBD of doing something very similar to that, to
Okay.
recreate that Italian style of coffee
Yep.
and that experience. That, you
Yep.
know, because the idea of like coffee is that, you know, in many cases, it's you to have coffee to take time out or you're out of time. Yeah, that's when you have
Yeah.
your coffee.
Yeah.
And so if you can have coffee where where you actually can enjoy it, you know, that having then transporting yourself and like you go to Brunetti's because you want to feel like you're in Italy.
Okay,
And so the idea of actually having that sort of, you know, that bar, you know, in Melbourne is something that, you know, I think would really resonate because people want to go on that, you know, transportation.
Yes,
It's like you go to
I
a movie.
agree. Yeah,
you go to
yeah.
a movie, and why do you go to a movie? Because you want to
Yeah.
take yourself to a place, or you know,
Yeah.
and I think that coffee can do the same thing.
Yep. I watch the Tour de France so I can see the scenery.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. And if you do open that coffee bar, Italian style, pay
Yeah.
pay for your receipt, take it
Spot on.
there,
Yep.
all of that.
Yep.
Please do get the gorgeous, arrogant waiting staff as well.
Well, in Italy, it's normally a woman who is controlling the money,
Yes.
and she stands at the counter, and you know, and often it's the barman. At the root of the barman, the better the coffee. you
Yeah,
know?
100%.
Yeah, and
I
make
love it.
sure next time you go, don't ask for a latte,
No.
because if you do ask for a latte, they will give you a glass of milk.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.